Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of GSA Snapshot webinars. During these 30-minute live sessions, we dig into a topic of interest, the global mobile ecosystem, trying to draw on the depth and breadth of GSA research and provide what we hope is some invaluable insights into the current state of 4G and 5G networks, technologies, spectrum and devices globally. In today's snapshot, the team will be sharing the latest global data on the 4G and 5G fixed wireless access market. First, a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into today's event. We're joined by Vishali Puritz, Simon Bryant and Luke Pierce from the GSA research team. They'll be running through the data and then we'll be taking Q&A at the end after we've shared the data. So please do ask questions as we go through the data and the insights. You can pose questions using the Q&A function on the side of the screen. We'll collate them and then get through as many as we can at the end of the session. We are recording this event and the on-demand recording will be shared with you immediately following. And you can also download the presentation, the slides that we're going through at any point during the event by moving your mouse over the slides and clicking on the little download icon, which you'll see in the top right of the screen. Immediately following the live event, so you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand recording and also links to all the latest GSA resources on the fixed wireless access market. But to get things started, I'll first hand over to Simon to kick things off.
Thank you, Richard. My name is Simon Bryant. I lead GSA research within GSA. And that research team is a team of full-time researchers who are conducting detailed research across the telecom industry on a daily basis. The data that we're going to be presenting to you today, and I'm going to hand over to Vishali in a second to do that, is taken from two sources. One is our fixed wireless access market update report, which was published in November, earlier this month. And that report reflects information that's published in our GAMBOD database, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment. And that's relevant up to data in GAMBOD to the end of October, covering both devices and operator activity. Also, we're taking information for today's presentation from our fixed wireless access forum CPE survey. Now in its third year, we updated this report in August based on information supplied confidentially by 27 CPE vendors who are all members of the 4G-5G fixed wireless access forum. We estimate the companies who participated in that survey represent a significant coverage of 3GPP based 4G and 5G fixed wireless access devices market. Before I hand over to Vishali, I'd just like to give you a brief introduction to GSA, or the Global Mobile Suppliers Association, as you might know it. GSA has represented the global mobile ecosystem since 1998. We're made up of 9 major industry executive companies and nearly 90 associate companies, which includes a wide mix of companies, including manufacturers, silicon vendors, regulators, analysts, and operators. We provide research and statistics covering several 3GPP related areas. The research is based on extensive desk research that's conducted every day. And in some cases, we're using primary data supplied confidentially by members of the GSA via the research team. The fixed wireless access survey that I mentioned is a good example of this methodology being used. We have free and member reports that dive into these areas, tracking development globally. Most of our reports draw upon data within the GAMBOD database, which I referred to earlier, which is an interactive online database tool that allows you to explore the wealth of information we have in-house. As well as the data and research that we're publishing, we have several focused working groups and forums, including the 4G-5G fixed wireless access forum, which I'll talk about a little bit after Vishali's presentation, and the Spectrum group, and the private mobile network special interest group as well. Our coverage includes the areas that you can see in this chart here across devices, public network operators, private networks, spectrum, chipsets, and more. And fixed wireless access is well covered across all of these areas. I now want to hand over to my colleague Vishali, who will discuss some of the latest findings on fixed wireless access. And I'll be back at the end to handle Q&A with help from my colleague Luke Pierce as well. So just one reminder, please do add questions to the questions box in the bottom right hand of your screen, and we'll do our best to tackle those at the end of this session. On that note, I'd like to hand over to Vaishali.
Thank you, Simon. Hi all, I'm Vaishali, a research analyst currently focusing on fixed wireless access. Fixed wireless access delivers high-speed internet to specific locations using wireless 4G or 5G mobile technology without the need to run physical cables like fibre optic or DSL lines. It's a popular topic at the moment in our industry, with many operators leveraging their existing 4G and 5G capabilities to provide broadband services using this method. To assess its current performance, let us first take a look at the market for CPE products based on the survey we conducted this year. Device shipments include both indoor and outdoor CPE and battery-operated hotspots. Results are the combined actual shipments of all 26 respondents who participated in this survey, which covers major manufacturers of fixed wireless access CPE equipment. Please note that these figures are a sample size rather than representative of the full market. 25.4 million shipments were recorded for 2022, which was up 12% on the previous year. That growth represents a pickup in fixed wireless access devices following the drop in 2021, with greater numbers of operators offering fixed wireless access plans in more countries worldwide. Now we are near the end of 2023, respondents forecasted another positive year for fixed wireless access and CPE devices, with more substantial prediction of 26% growth for 4G and 5G fixed wireless access CPEs in 2023. All form factors are expected to grow, with indoor CPE, which is the largest category accounting for 63% of volumes, expected to grow the most at 34%. Battery-operated hotspots, although still expected to grow 11%, are not expected to return to the levels of 2020, in which demand in the COVID-19 pandemic saw numbers peak. Similarly, outdoor CPEs were expected to grow by 14%, surpassing the number of shipments in 2020. Here we are looking at two factors which have impact on the supply side of shipment performance. On the left, impact of component shortages, and on the right, impact of inflation on prices. You can quite clearly see the reducing impact component shortages has had in 2022. With 10 out of 22 respondents indicating that the issue was significant and affected more than 10% of volumes. From 2023, while some shortages have remained, the majority have reported just minor or no shortages. By 2024, the impact of component shortages looks to be alleviated, with 16 of 26 respondents stating that they do not expect their company to be affected. In addition to component shortages, inflation also had a significant impact on prices, and a similar pattern of the issue shifted from a major one to a minor one between 2022 and 2024. However, respondents were less optimistic with inflation that it would disappear entirely, with most respondents expecting some impact to remain in 2024. 6 of 26 respondents stated that they expect their company to be affected by inflationary pressures during 2024. This survey was completed in June this year, and whilst component shortages seem to have been resolved, high levels of inflation remain a significant factor, affecting many economies across the world. So it will be interesting to see the new results and whether suppliers think it will have had an effect. Now, looking to our Gambod database, which is where we can find the most up-to-date information on the number of CPE devices and fixed wireless access services by operators. 2021 saw a significant number of CPE devices being announced, growing 52% from 629 to 952 during the year. While momentum slowed a little going into 2022, in the first 6 months of the year, we saw the number of devices available jump 26%, up from 1,013 to 1,155 in June. However, this growth has again slowed towards the end of the year, increasing only 2.6% between June and November to 1,186 devices. This could have something to do with the supply chains looking more resilient, as well as new ranges of both 4G and 5G models now available on the market. The number of fixed wireless access services by operators also continued to increase, although at a slightly slower rate. Between 2020 and 2021, the figure grew from 467 to 512. then up to 529 in October 2022 and 545 in June 2023. Now we're at 587 announced LTE and 5G fixed wireless access services, a growth of 42 since June, overtaking the growth rate seen in 2022 significantly. It is worth noting that the increase in figures can be partly attributed to the GSA's reviewing of data sources, but the trend remains reflective. A large and growing number of operators are leveraging their capabilities to offer this additional service to both consumers and businesses for internet access. It is especially pertinent in countries with large rural populations or countries with a lack of fixed-line broadband infrastructure. Government initiatives to help connect the unconnected, the replacement of DSL, and the increased amount of work and school from home are significant trends accelerating its rollout. Its proposition has also evolved so that it is being perceived as a main broadband solution, no longer about secondary mobile broadband via dongles, MiFi devices, or mobile tethering. Although that is the number of launch services, there are still more operators who are planning and investing in the capability. As of the latest numbers, we now have 678 LTE or 5G fixed wireless access services being invested worldwide across 187 countries, an increase of 38 more than the last update. 70% of these have launched, with 554 fixed wireless access services being offered across 175 countries. Notable launches in this period were those in Hong Kong, with China Mobile Hong Kong and Reliance Jio in India. At this level, it is a technology and a service which is becoming mature, with penetration across most major countries and all regions. There are just a few remaining not spots across Central Africa and Southeast Asia. Despite the majority of services, there is still a huge amount of potential. Full operator coverage, service roll-up, and consumer adoption within these countries is another story. 5G is also another factor which is accelerating the growth of fixed wireless access, and we can see is already increasing potential in Europe and Asia Pacific specifically. In the report, we captured advertised tariff structures and marketed DL speeds. There is a mix of volume-based tariffs and speed-based tariffs. The majority of LTE services offer speeds of less than 500 Mbps, with more than half offering less than 100 Mbps. However, with 5G, speeds are much faster, and the majority offer maximum speeds over 500 Mbps and even 1 Gbps, with a significant proportion offering more than 2 Gbps. Impressively, since the last update, a few more services offer speeds advertised up to 5 Gbps, with one even offering 5,400 Mbps. Although these are advertised maximum speeds and are not guaranteed, it is clear to see why the introduction of 5G has helped fixed wireless access to accelerate its growth and become a more compelling service offering. Looking closer to 5G, we can see that 5G adoption has been accelerating. By the end of October 2023, 578 operators in 173 countries are now investing in 5G, with 300 having launched one or more 5G services. Although this still has a long way to go compared to LTE services, which now has over 820 launched services. Some of these operators have used their 5G spectrum and infrastructure to offer fixed wireless access services. Our latest reports show that a total of 192 operators are investing in 5G fixed wireless access services, with 152 operators now having launched a service, up from 109 in the last update. The majority of fixed wireless access services remain 4G, with 436 launched services compared to 5G's 152. Still, this number is growing, with 5G fixed wireless access services now 26% of all launched services. This has grown from 20% reported in the last update. As you can see from the map, much of North America, Europe, Oceania, and the Gulf have launched services. For example, across the EC27, there are now 66 launched services in most markets. We expect 5G services to continue growing. Existing LTE fixed wireless connections are expected to be upgraded to 5G connections. Plus, incremental 5G fixed wireless adoption is expected, thanks to the additional bandwidth offered by the next generation connectivity and a push by some operators. From an industry perspective, fixed wireless access could be seen to offer more value to operators than connections on 5G smartphones or other devices, with a premium stemming from the fact that one connection can feed several devices through Wi-Fi or Ethernet connectivity. This trend is reflected in the number of 5G fixed wireless access shipments too, recorded by members of the GSA forum in the survey. Compared to 2021, fixed wireless access 5G shipments doubled in 2022 and now stand at 7.4 million, totaling 29% of shipments. This is expected to almost double by the end of 2023 to 13.8 million, equaling 40% of fixed wireless access shipments. Similarly, fixed wireless access 4G shipments remained stable at around 18 million during 2021 to 2023, having dropped drastically from 29 million in 2020. Millimeter wave shipments were also recorded, with some operators choosing to utilize FR2 spectrum to deliver high-speed fixed wireless services in markets like the US. Millimeter wave CPE shipments remained small at just 6% of 5G CPE shipments in both 2022 and 2023, as this technology is still relatively early in its adoption curve. Although growing, one factor limiting 5G's fixed wireless access adoption is the cost of 5G CPE compared to 4G CPE, particularly in developing markets where ARPU is lower. In the GSA Forum survey back in June, we asked when respondents believe 5G CPE would reach the level of 4G CPE today. The majority of vendors think 5G CPE prices will reach parity with those of 4G CPE, with supply-side shortages, component costs, and economics of scale helping to decrease costs over the next few years. Still, 26% believe it could be after 2025, with 22% believing it may be after 2027 until the costs come down as quickly. As we can see, the numbers of 5G CPE devices announced have steadily been increasing over the last few quarters. Since we last presented the data, back at the end of May in 2023, 307 5G fixed wireless access products are being tracked, up from 283. That's 184 indoor and 123 outdoor models. Year on year, the number of 5G fixed wireless access CPE models has risen 11%. This is from 83 different vendors offering these products. In summary, the Gamboard data shows continued growth in fixed wireless access services and devices overall, across many different markets and operators around the world as a way to deliver broadband services. Although device shipments and growth will be confirmed in the next survey from the Fixed Wireless Access Forum, based on the mid-year survey, 2022 was a growth year, and there is an even more positive outlook for the full year 2023. And lastly, 5G fixed wireless access in particular continues to grow strongly and has plenty of room to grow further as prices and costs fall. I will now hand back to my colleague Simon Fry.
Thank you, Vishali. So to finish off, I just want to touch a little bit on the forum and this slide, which is highlighting some of the resources available to members or associates of the forum and GSA. So we have the Fixed Wireless Access Directory, which was launched last year. We have the Market Status Report. We have the survey, which we've referred to in this presentation, the Ecosystem Catalogue, and the plenary number 5 presentation, which happened recently. In terms of upcoming events, which might be of interest, next week on the 7th of December, we give our annual review of the year. So what we've seen, not just fixed wireless access, but fixed wireless access will factor within that. But our review across everything related to the information within GSA. And finally, before we do Q&A, just want to give a status update on the 4G, 5G fixed wireless access forum. We now count 54 members of the group, including a variety of types of vendors that you can see on the right there, majority being CPE vendors, but there's a variety of companies that are now participating in the forum. There's different membership types as well. Companies can be partners, they can be members, or they can be observers of the group. And you can see the list of companies there, many leading companies within CPE and fixed wireless access participating in that group today. If there is any interest in the forum, please get in touch after this event. On that note, there's still time to submit questions. If we can't answer questions today, then we will do our best to get back to you after the event. So please add your questions to the question box, which is private. Nobody can see the questions that you submit there. We have had quite a few during this session. So on that note, I'm also going to welcome Luke Pierce, who's a colleague within GSA Research, who's going to help with the Q&A. So some of the questions I'm looking at here, maybe I can start with Luke. Why is 5G fixed wireless access lacking in Africa?
So Africa there's actually quite a lot of 4G services in Africa. It's actually, I think one of the charts there showed the number of operators in Africa launching 4G services is actually very large. It is seen, fixed wireless access is seen as a way of accessing fixed broadband in Africa relative to other regions. It is a bit more prominent. Generally, though, 5G spectrum hasn't been available in a lot of African countries yet. Some are still rolling out their first kind of 5G mobile services as well. So I think it's just a case of being slightly early in adoption. I think that we will see a transition from the number of 4G services to 5G services in Africa. I think that the cost of the 5G CPE devices has also limited maybe its adoption in those perhaps more price sensitive markets. But as kind of Vishali's shown from that survey, where we are seeing the cost of 5G fixed wireless access CPE falling over the next few years. And by 2025, I think the number was that we expect that to be at the level of 4G as well. So hopefully we will probably begin to see more 5G fixed wireless access services in Africa over the next few years.
Thanks very much. Another question that's just come in here. It says, do you have a forecast for the growth of shipments of millimeter wave capable CPE and a breakdown of outdoor and indoor? One thing I think it's worth mentioning, there's a few that's asked about forecasts. GSA doesn't provide forecasts. I would say that, analyst firms, you should probably look to for forecasts. However, within the GSA data, there is plenty of information breaking out millimeter wave. And I think maybe Luke or Vishali can correct me if I'm wrong, but millimeter wave did show growth, albeit from a relatively small base. It did show growth over the surveys, including the latest update.
Yeah, that's right. The survey vendors in the survey were asked to forecast what they thought kind of 2023 and 2024 might look like for millimeter wave, and I think that remained at kind of 6%. But obviously the number of 5G shipments was growing. So in terms of numbers, it was anticipated to grow, but remain at a similar percentage of 5G CPE shipments, I believe.
Thanks very much. Vishali, a question for you, if that's okay. Does a window mount CPE count as an indoor or an outdoor CPE?
So we'll have to check this because it can be both, depending on where it's been placed. But for the forum, we'll have to check which category it falls into. But in the forum and in the survey, we specifically ask about window-mounted CPEs. So we haven't classified it as indoor, outdoor. It's its own category in and of itself.
Okay, thank you very much. Luke, what are the user services that make 5G fixed wireless access attractive?
Yeah, so to make it attractive, for users. Obviously, we are seeing some pretty good speeds, as we've seen there, with particularly with 5G fixed wireless access. Kind of speeds of up to 1 gigabit or more. That's pretty impressive, particularly when compared to some areas which may not have fibre optic broadband yet. They may have kind of more legacy technology such as DSL or even no fixed broadband capability yet. So in those situations, fixed wireless access and the speeds it provides is very advantageous to the user. It enables them to get internet very at decent level speeds. I think the setup cost and ease is also an attractive user proposition of fixed wireless access. You don't need to wait for the engineer to come round and switch it on or install it or anything like that. It's very easy to set up and get going out of the box, really. So from user perspective, that's also quite an attractive user case of fixed wireless access, I would say.
Thanks very much. Staying with you, Luke, for one more here. Do you have an idea in which markets fixed wireless access is penetrating the most?
Yeah, so we do. It is definitely a global story. Each region and each country is very, very different. The loudest operators that have done saying how well they're doing, particularly in the US, we see with T-Mobile and Verizon, who publish their kind of fixed wireless access subscriber numbers and that kind of thing. They're certainly having a lot of success in the US, kind of eating away share from some of the kind of cable providers there in the US, and not just for consumers, but also for the enterprise market as well. It's important to stress, this isn't just a residential proposition, but also for enterprises, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises as well. So the US is certainly a success story for 5G fixed wireless access. Another one, perhaps more recently, is the one with Reliance Jio in India. They are certainly very optimistic about the growth of fixed wireless access in India, and since acquiring Spectrum last year, they have certainly used that to their advantage to roll out 5G fixed wireless access services in India, and I think they've forecasted as much as 100 million subscribers they're aiming for over the next few years, which is very, very ambitious. So yeah, certainly there are some pockets of some real success stories around the world, and each country is very different, but generally, operators do see this as a real way to help kind of gain some, release some more service propositions and really kind of utilize the spectrum assets and infrastructure that they've already established.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll come to Vishali now, if I may. This is also about millimeter wave. Vishali, what are the numbers of CPE for fixed wireless access, specifically using 5G millimeter wave, and how many providers globally have commercially rolled it out?
So in Gambod, we count just under 20 models with millimeter wave support. In the webinar, the survey stated that 6% of total 5G shipments were millimeter wave capable. We have started to track this, and we will continue to track this, but operators such as Verizon in the US and some operators in Japan and the Gulf region have launched such services. As of yet, we're not entirely sure on total numbers, but as you can see, millimeter wave models are slowly increasing as a proportion of 5G shipments. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot of questions coming in now, which is great. Another question I'll pick off here, Luke, if you're happy to answer this one, is around the UK. It says, would love to have seen a breakdown of fixed wireless access in the UK. Is it still only for rural? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're now in a position where we can say I think all of the UK operators do have a fixed wireless access proposition in the UK, I believe. So yeah, all four kind of mobile operators are using fixed wireless access, each in their own ways and for their own services. There are, in some ways, yes, it is being positioned as a rural solution, for those in the kind of countryside that don't yet have fibre, as I mentioned. But it's not just a rural solution. It can be seen as particularly in kind of semi-urban or even urban scenarios where those speeds are advantageous, or whether it's kind of easier setup or cost effectiveness. There are a number of different reasons why a service provider may opt to utilize fixed wireless access as a service offering. So yeah, it's a little bit different for each of the operators in the UK, but all 4 operators in the UK have a fixed wireless access service at the moment.
Thanks very much. Okay, last question we can squeeze in just before we finish up. With regards to the speeds you track for 5G, how much of this is using public or private 5G spectrum?
Yeah, I think the majority of those speeds is using kind of public spectrum. I think the majority of the kind of way that the methodology works for that survey and looking at all the different services and speeds is done by looking at those mobile network operators' websites that are offering a public service where that information is available, of course. I'm not sure for private 5G spectrum. We do have some of those private operators within the GSA database who have a fixed wireless access service as well, but generally I'd say the majority of that information is related to public operators with public spectrum, I would say.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll end there. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you, Vishali, and thank you all for listening in. I'll hand over to Richard.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll just close today's webinar by once again thanking you for joining us, and thanking Charlie, Simon and Luke for joining us and sharing us the latest data with us. After the event, as we mentioned, you will receive a link to the full webinar recording and also to the fixed wireless access resources that the GSA has in that email. In the coming months, we'll have more events that will dig into the key reports and data and trends that our research team is looking after. In the next snapshot, we're taking a wide-ranging review of the key 4G and 5G milestones from the past year, looking at things like the state of spectrum assignments and auctions around the world, and the usage of different spectrum bands for 5G, the emergence of non-terrestrial networks, speeds and experiences, and the best performing operators, 2G, 3G switch off, the migration to 5G standalone, 5G for private networks, and also looking at the state of 5G chipsets and device availability. So really a complete broad look at all the different sort of data that GSA is tracking in its GSA database. For the latest updates on GSA research and activities in upcoming events, please do follow GSA on the social channels. You'll find us on LinkedIn, on X, and on YouTube. And if you visit gsacom.com, you can subscribe to our weekly Research Digest email, so you get all the reports delivered straight to your inbox. Finally, on behalf of the GSA team, I'll just say thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon at a future GSA event. Many thanks.